Princess Diana did not die instantly in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. She was alive. For over an hour after the crash, she was conscious, she was breathing, and French doctors were working on her at the scene. The hospital was 4 minutes away. It took 40 minutes for the ambulance to leave the tunnel. It took another 26 minutes to reach a hospital that should have been a 4-minute drive. By the time she arrived, it was too late. The decisions made in that tunnel on the night of August 31st, 1997, have never been fully explained. And the evidence that might have answered the questions was compromised before any investigation could properly examine it. The crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel happened at 12:23 a.m. The Mercedes, carrying Diana, Dodi Fayed, driver Henri Paul, and bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, struck a concrete pillar at high speed. Dodi Fayed and Henri Paul died at the scene. Trevor Rees-Jones survived with serious injuries. Diana was alive. The first medical responder to reach her was a doctor named Frédéric Mailliez, who happened to be driving through the tunnel and stopped when he saw the crash. He later said that he had found a young woman who was unconscious but breathing with no obvious catastrophic injuries. He did not know who she was. He called for an ambulance and began treating her. The French emergency medical system, known as SAMU, operates differently from British or American emergency services. In France, the standard protocol is to stabilize a patient at the scene before transporting them. A doctor rides in the ambulance and treatment continues during transport. The decision of when to move a patient is made by the medical team on the ground based on their assessment of the patient's condition. This protocol is designed to prevent the deterioration that can occur when critically injured patients are moved before being stabilized. The SAMU team that arrived at the tunnel assessed Diana and began treatment. She went into cardiac arrest at the scene. They resuscitated her. They administered blood transfusions. They worked on her for over an hour inside the tunnel and in the stationary ambulance. The Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, which has one of the best trauma units in Europe, was 6 kilometers away. Under normal driving conditions for an emergency vehicle, that is approximately 4 minutes. The ambulance left the tunnel at 1:41 a.m., 78 minutes after the crash. It traveled slowly, stopping once en route when Diana's condition deteriorated again. It arrived at the hospital at 2:06 a.m. Diana went into surgery immediately. She was pronounced dead at 4 a.m. The cause of death was internal bleeding from a torn pulmonary vein, an injury to the major blood vessel connecting the heart to the lungs. The French medical team's decision to spend over an hour treating Diana at the scene before moving her has been defended by French medical authorities as consistent with SAMU protocol for a patient in her condition. British medical experts who reviewed the case have been more critical. Some have argued that immediate transport to the hospital with treatment continuing en route would have given her a better chance of survival. The specific medical debate has never been definitively resolved in the context of Diana's injuries. But it is not the only question the tunnel raises. Henri Paul had a blood alcohol level of 3 times the legal limit. He also had traces of prescription antidepressants and an anti-anxiety medication called tiopride in his system. Tiopride is prescribed for alcohol dependency. The combination of alcohol and tiopride in Henri Paul's system has never been fully explained. Who prescribed the tiopride, when it was prescribed, and why a man employed to drive one of the most famous women in the world that night had been taking medication for alcohol dependency are questions that the French investigation addressed only partially. Henri Paul's blood samples became the subject of significant controversy. A French inquiry found irregularities in the way the blood samples had been stored and handled. Some investigators raised questions about whether the samples used for the toxicology analysis were definitively from Henri Paul. The French authorities maintained they were. The controversy has never been fully resolved. Then there is the embalming. Within hours of Diana's death at the hospital, before any formal British or international investigation had been established, her body was embalmed by French authorities. Embalming destroys biological evidence. It makes it impossible to conduct certain toxicological tests. It prevents a full forensic examination of the body in its original state. The British government had not requested or authorized the embalming. It was performed under French jurisdiction. The decision was later described by the British coroner conducting the inquest into Diana's death as deeply unsatisfactory. The coroner noted that the embalming had been carried out in circumstances that compromised the ability of any subsequent investigation to fully examine the evidence. The British inquest into Diana's death was one of the longest and most expensive in British legal history. It concluded in 2008 with a jury returning a verdict of unlawful killing caused by grossly negligent driving by Henri Paul and the pursuing photographers. The jury rejected the conspiracy theories about deliberate assassination. But the inquest also confirmed several facts that have never been fully explained. The embalming happened before any British investigation was established. The blood sample irregularities were acknowledged but not resolved. The 40-minute delay in the tunnel before the ambulance left was examined, but the medical decisions that produced it were not subjected to formal disciplinary review. And the photographers who were present in the tunnel in the immediate aftermath of the crash, some of whom photographed the dying princess rather than helping her, were investigated by French authorities and cleared of any criminal responsibility. The first man to reach Diana after the crash, Dr. Frédéric Mailles, has said in subsequent interviews that he believes she could have survived if she had reached the hospital sooner. He is a medical professional who was there. He treated her. He has lived with that assessment for nearly 30 years. Diana was alive in that tunnel. She was breathing. She was being treated by doctors. The hospital was 4 minutes away. Whether she would have survived with faster transport to that hospital is a medical question that cannot now be answered with certainty. Whether the decisions made in that tunnel that night were the right ones is a question the people who made them have never been formally required to answer. The embalming made sure certain questions could never be asked at all.